Good evening and welcome to the show. We're so glad to have you join us again, and we have an exciting show for you this evening. I have two of the best guests. I say that all the time, but I do have two of the best guests. I mean very, very informative, and they're going to provide so much information. And as I tell you, for each show, be sure to get something so you can write down a lot of the information, because this is going to be a wow factor for both segments, all four segments. So I'd like you to write this down, and that way you'll have something and you can say, I need to get in touch with these people and find out more about exactly what they do. My first guest is Susan Sorrells. Susan, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you, Tom.
I'm glad to have you here, and we're going to be talking about Susan and talking about a lot of things that she's involved in. Now, many of you may have heard of the town of Shoshone.
Yes.
And when I first heard Susan talk about Shoshone, I was really, really impressed. And I did everything I could to get her on the show, and she's finally here. And so now you'll find out everything that we talked about, because Shoshone is truly, truly exciting, and I don't know that much about it. So exactly what do you do as far as, I call you the mayor of Shoshone, and in Pahrump Life magazine, they call you the heart and soul behind Shoshone wetlands. This was in the Pahrump Life magazine, and this was last year, September and October issue. So when we look at that, that's Susan. And Susan can tell us so much about Shoshone. And every time I go over and my wife says, well, you met Susan, so tell me something about Shoshone. Well, I can't remember. She said so much. And that's what we're going to cover on this show today. So tell us something about Shoshone.
Well, I so appreciate this opportunity because I obviously think Shoshone is so very special. And there's so much to see. So many people in Pahrump go to Shoshone to get their lotto ticket.
Yes.
And perhaps have a meal at the Crowbar.
Okay.
But there's just so much more in Shoshone. And it is in my heart and soul because I'm fourth generation there.
Ah.
My,
so you're actually from Shoshone?
I am from Shoshone.
Okay.
My great-grandfather founded Shoshone in 1910.
Ah.
And he was a freighter with a 20-mule team.
Okay.
And we tell the story in our family that he moved from Utah to Las Vegas and realized that nothing was happening in Las Vegas, so moved to Ash Meadows.
Okay.
So he started a camp in Ash Meadows because during the mining boom, Ash Meadows was a really happening place. And then from Ash Meadows, he went to Greenwater,
okay,
which was another big boom town at the turn of the century. And when, of course, many of these so-called boom towns were stock scams. And when the bottom fell out in Greenwater, he moved to Shoshone.
Ah, okay.
So our family has been there since 1910. And then my grandfather, my great-grandfather was such a character. His name was Dad Fairbanks, and he was...
Doug Fairbanks?
Dad.
Dad,
D-A-D. And
Dad Fairbanks, okay.
He had a really special relationship with the Utes and the Paiutes.
Ah, okay.
And he actually spoke Paiute.
Okay.
And he learned a lot from the Paiute. So he and his longtime friend, who was a Paiute elder, Tom Weed, taught him a lot about the desert and survival. So he and Tom were known for rescuing people that got stranded in the desert.
Oh, gee.
So my roots go deep. But at the age of 75, he decided that his future was in Baker because the freeway was going into Baker.
Okay.
And he left Shoshone, and my grandfather came to Shoshone with his bride, Stella Fairbanks Brown, which was Dad Fairbanks' daughter. And that was in 1925. And then my mother was born there. My two uncles and my aunt were born there. And then my grandfather decided to run for Senate. So he ran for California State Senate, and won and was a senator for 25 years.
Ah, okay.
And so my father was, who was a lawyer, my mother loved Shoshone, and so she talked my father, who was a lawyer, to come to Shoshone, and they moved to Shoshone in the late 1940s, and I came to Shoshone when I was 10 days old.
So you've been there
So
for a while.
I love it.
Okay.
But then when I was 12, I left, and I went away to school, but Shoshone was always my base and my love.
Okay.
And then I actually left for about 25 years. I was worked in Washington, D.C. I lived in New York for quite a long time.
What did you do in D.C.?
I was Tom Kuechel's intern, and Leon Panetta was my my immediate supervisor.
Oh, okay.
And so it was really,
Somebody
really
famous here too.
Yeah, it was really exciting. At those days, you know, he was just a AA, but he was such a really wonderful, kind, smart person.
Okay.
And I learned a lot from him. And then I went into the Peace Corps to Africa.
Okay.
And so I lived in Africa. I was in the Peace Corps for a couple of years, and then I stayed on or came back. I was in the Peace Corps in West Africa. I came back and lived in East Africa. And so I saw a lot of the world, but the Desert Skies called me. And so I returned home. It was really sad circumstances. My mother was ill.
Oh, gee.
And my mother was my dearest friend, and I just adored her, and I came home to be with her, and unfortunately she passed.
Sorry to hear that.
And I just couldn't leave.
Understand.
I couldn't leave.
Well, I think Shoshone and Pahrump has benefited by you being here.
Oh, well,
So
it's been it is a wonderful life. And then about that time I met my husband, Robert Haynes, and so he and I have been man and wife, partners, best friends, lovers for 35 years.
Oh,
And,
congratulations.
so we've just had a wonderful life together. And because of my deep love for Shoshone, I really was never much of a business person, but I love the land, I love the people, the community. We had a different way of so-called development, and that was to steward the environment.
Okay.
So we have amazing wetlands, walking paths. We've been able to not only propagate or have a healthy environment for a biodiverse ecosystem, but we've actually brought back 2 endangered species.
Wow.
So it's just it's a beautiful, beautiful place. It's in the center of town, which is really interesting because most people think of very fragile wetlands as being in a sanctuary.
Yes, definitely.
And both my husband and I are very committed to the fact that that nature should be biodiverse and not just focus in on one species, but it should be biodiverse and include us human beings. So we really integrate this beautiful, fragile area with interpretive signs and walking paths and seats where people can sit and observe the birds or photograph birds. Or
What do you mean by interpretive signs?
signs that tell you about the area and about the animals and the plants that are there. And, and also, we're just working on one now that shows you how to, or encourages folks to steward the land and to enjoy it and be a part of it, but to leave no trace and really enhance it through different environmental
Now,
methods.
for going through Shoshone and seeing all the things you're talking about, is there a big charge for this?
It's free.
It's all free.
It's free. It's free and open to the community, and we have many educational institutions. For an example, Semester of the West, with the University of Washington will be there. I'll be giving a tour to them on Friday, tomorrow. The local schools come there. We have Donna Urell, a good friend of mine, is giving a painting class in the wetlands. We have writing classes there, so it's really been a place that the community has embraced.
Okay.
And I try to walk through it every morning, bright and early. That's how I get my exercise.
Okay.
So
well,
it's very beautiful.
You know, earlier, before we started, you were mentioning that I could come over and get a tour. So my wife is going to watch this, and she's going to say, okay, when are we going? And this is going to be great because we're going to be looking forward to it. Because I want to learn more about Shoshone, and I think our viewing audience would also like to know much, much more about Shoshone. So I know we're going to talk a lot in our next segment, but because we still have some time left in this segment, what is it you want to just wow them with to make sure that they're very interested in coming over to Shoshone?
Well, again, being a native daughter, so to speak, I think all of us that are here, for the most part, are here because we love the desert. We love the sunsets. We love the sunrises. We enjoy the community. And I think Shoshone is an example how a private landowner can steward the land and have sustainable economy, sustainable ecosystems, plan a community or develop a community that's close to nature.
Okay.
I think we all really feel a little wonky when we get alienated from nature, and I think I'm proud of the example we're setting in how private property can be managed for the good of everyone.
That is so beautiful. Look, we're running out of time. We're going to go into our next segment in just a few seconds, but we want you to be sure you come back and join us because we have so much more to talk about in the town of Shoshone.